Ooh, hey, developers leading in tech. I'm so excited to get started on our training today, which is going to be on how do you not become obsolete in the industry. I'm really excited. And I am going to be doing a little bit of housekeeping rules real quick. I am going to be streaming on multiple platforms. So you might catch me looking over to one of my multiple monitors. So I might be either looking at notes to making sure that I stay on task and on subject, or looking at one of the screens to make sure that I catch any comments that anyone's leaving on either Facebook, which I'm streaming live on Facebook right now, on YouTube, in our Zoom chat, or on LinkedIn. So in any of those places, if you have any comments, please jump in and I will make sure to keep checking them time to time to make sure that I catch any comments that you are leaving. So I'm gonna do that now, see what we got going on here. I'm gonna let some people, looks like people are still coming in on the different platforms. Yeah, I am super happy and super excited to see all of you in the group. It's been a fun week getting everything together for this topic. Our team has been putting together this as well as some other resources for you. So please keep checking back in the group and see uh, all the resources that we've put together. And feel free to share this video with anyone that you know will get some value out of it. Even if they're not in the group, we want to make sure that we grow as a community. And that means making sure that everyone grows. Cool? Awesome. All right, so let's jump into it. Once again, hi, developers leading in tech. I'm so happy to have you all in the group as well as streaming live with us today with this training on how not to become obsolete in our industry. If we take a look at just what's changed over the course of our industry, so much has become so outdated and so fast. You know, if you think about some of the big takeaways from the start of the iPhone, right? So when the iPhone first came out and to right now, originally Objective C was the language of choice. So if you were a developer, you were developing with the iPhone and using Objective C. Now I've tried really hard to use Objective C, but it wasn't an easy one by any stretch of the imagination. It was a really tough language uh, to get your head around, and then in terms of iteration, it took a lot of time. Fast forward to today, Swift has almost completely uh, replaced Objective C. And part of the reason for that is the industry just keeps shifting. Things need to become more readily available, easier to code, and easier to iterate over. Now, I'm sure over the time that the iPhone was out, Apple and some other people, all the developers in the network, were probably looking at the same thing. How is it possible that we're going to build our engagement, build our app, our platform, if developers are taking too long to do things, or if they're frustrated with the current state of that particular platform? So with that shift from Objective C to Swift, you had the Swift Playground that came involved. Now you can see your code live and make changes, which is for iteration. That is so important. But that's one of the great things about our industry. Our industry is almost self-cleansing in a sense. It'll start healing itself. It'll evolve. It'll evolve. It'll evolve. Which will, if you're keeping up with the trends, keeping up with pace, you're going to stay in the industry, and you can stay in this industry for a very long time and be very productive because you don't have to worry about something like the industrial revolution, where you had all of this technology, all of these new machine powered engines that were coming in, and now all those jobs are pretty much done and gone. Coal miners gone. It's just, those are skills that became so tied to the industry that the industry evolved and had to evolve, but the people couldn't continue to evolve with it. So that's one of the pluses with being in our industry. Take a look at some of the comments that I'm seeing here. cool. So along with Objective-C, what we also saw was Flash. Flash was major. And I am going to be the first person to tell you, I was such a Flash developer. I absolutely loved Flash. It was a great time. As a Flash developer, you had to do so many things. You know, because of the actual IDE itself, it was originally an animation tool and it grew to be something more. So as a Flash developer, you were also a designer because it just came with the territory. So you were designing in Flash, you did UI, you did UX, you did animation, you did motion graphics, and of course you developed with ActionScript because it just took less time. Now, when you're in the Flash, in the heyday, when you're a Flash developer, you are making, north of 200 to 400K a year as a consultant. Like the money was ridiculous. There was so much money involved, and then it burst. It was dirty. Now, there was a lot of people who had to make a decision. Do you become obsolete and no longer do Flash and just fall out of the industry? Or do you try to evolve into something new? Now, parallel to that, this is going to sound crazy for some of you, there were 4 different positions, okay? You were either a CSS developer, you were a JavaScript developer, you were a HTML developer, or you were a Flash developer. At one point, you weren't all 4 of those. You were one of them. And so what started happening is CSS started to really take off, and then you needed somebody who also knew HTML because really they go hand to hand with each other. So what you saw is now CSS and HTML became together. So do you do HTML and CSS? Well, after a while, you needed interactivity. The only way to get interactivity is to add JavaScript. So now CSS developers not only had to learn HTML, they also had to learn JavaScript, which at that point in time was, wow, what a game changer. But once again, you either evolve or you become obsolete. And so a lot of people started learning, the industry started shifting and moving towards you had to know both of them. At the time, I was doing a lot of Flash backend as well. So I was doing MySQL, I was doing, database driven applications at that time. They called them dynamic applications. And what was shifting now is you were starting to get this workflow where you would go from the browser to a backend and back. Still evolving. Our industry was still evolving. And when the iPhone came out and Steve Jobs was like, we're not using Flash, that became a monumental shift in the industry again. And I say all of this because, in our short span, and I'd say the last 10, 15 years, we've had a lot of technology that has come and gone, and some that were extremely heavy mainstays like Flash, even Objective-C, but they both have fallen wayside. Now, I will say, as a Flash developer, I will admit that if there was a bug on the internet or any hacking, it was probably due to Flash. Flash had so many loopholes. Uh, it was almost like a 90% rate of Flash exposing your computer to some kind of harmful. So it wasn't just, Flash needed to go. There were a lot of pieces that needed to really go. So it happened, and I knew some people who made the transition to become more, to evolve with the industry. And I knew some people who they really struggled with shifting over into the new world, outside of having Flash or Objective-C. Do you make a switch to Objective-C? I knew a lot of people who actually from Objective-C went into web technology because they were so used to that structure that they preferred to go into another language that was more inclined to what they were used to. So, the way you shift left and right sometimes, you can go lateral or jump into a new industry, but it's about being a driving force for change or being part of that wave of new change. Cool. Let me just see how we're doing with comments. All right, cool. Now, some of the things that have changed and evolved within the industry for us developers maintain the same stature, and a few of those items are focused learning. Now, it can be almost daunting, especially if you think about the shift from being a Flash developer, a Objective C developer, or whatever language you were using. No, I'll even throw Perl in there because I'm sure there are a few people who've also used Perl, and I'm sorry. Making the shift out of one part of the industry into another can be difficult, and especially daunting when you're thinking, wow, I have to learn JavaScript, or I have to learn Node.js, or serverless technology is out. What am I going, where do I begin? You can aimlessly start going in the dark and just learning a bunch of material. Not the way to go. Absolutely not the way to go. Because if you think about it, there is so many avenues of any given technology. I'm going to use JavaScript, for example. If you want to, you can build tools with JavaScript in the browser. You can do websites, you can do uh, applications, enterprise apps, or you can do desktop apps, or you can go and build something still using JavaScript. You can build games that are made for the mobile device. So if you think about just JavaScript in itself, you already have 7, 8 applications that you can use JavaScript for. And it can be really difficult to try to learn every single one of those applications when the industry is shifting. So a better idea is to not overstimulate yourself and not try to learn everything at once, but focus on the key areas of change that are in your industry, and then take one step out and go around your industry. Because if you look at our industry right now, there's a lot of movement around machine learning and AI. Amazon's last event, right? It was so packed with machine learning. They even went as far as to have machine learning that can learn coding styles and fix a lot of the errors that you have, memory leaks in code from a GitHub pull request. Like, that is amazing. Kind of scary, but amazing. And what they did was they said, hey, where's this shift going? Machine learning. Cool. How can we leverage machine learning for coding? Well, if we teach the machine or an AI what does good coding practices look like, and how to identify when you have any types of mistakes, it could be memory errors that are due from that mistake. How do you leverage that? And that's what they did. They leveraged machine learning, a little bit of AI, to learn what good coding practices are. See, they went a little bit outside of the industry and came back in. And that's a great way to stay focused and to keep yourself from becoming obsolete. Now, another big point is finding a career path. Your career path can be, I want to become a front-end engineer who focuses highly on WebGL interactions. Or it could be, I want to be a front-end full-stack developer that also dabbles a little bit in the back end, your full stack being Node.js. Having a career path and having some kind of guidance and investing in your future evolves around you having the right type of mentorship, coaching, or just having some kind of key to what is currently out there and where you can possibly go. Now, I mentioned in the post, what is self-taught developers? Well, this is part of that. Being a self-taught developer is being able to be a little bit agile and be able to evolve with the industry, evolve with change, and of course having guidance. If you want to be around for a while, you have to invest in yourself. You have to push outside of your boundaries. Now, I'm a huge gamer, love Final Fantasy, and whenever I do workshops or give talks, I tend to say this, with much love, is you have to know your limit breakers, right? In Final Fantasy, you had these special moves whenever you got really down and tired, and it almost looked like there was absolutely no way you can defeat a boss. You get this limit breaker. And the moment you used it, it was, this magical theatrical experience where you'd almost defeat anybody using it. And those limit breakers are what you have to become in your industry and for yourself and invest in yourself so that you can keep breaking those limits. And when it gets really difficult or the industry starts to shift, you can focus and say, hey, look, at this point in time, I just need to bust through this limit, just break through this limit, break through this one. And you will start to see that, having that tenacity of a self-taught developer will help you stay in the industry and really thrive in it as well. So take a real quick look at comments, making sure we're all good. And yes, if you have any comments or you have any questions, please jump into any one of the platforms, YouTube, Facebook, the Zoom call. There's a link in the actual description if you want to jump on there. Checking everywhere, making sure that we're all good. Cool. So a big movement in investing in your career and growing is also, how do you find focus, right? I talked a little bit about having a mentor or having some kind of coaching. If you're in an organization that has a lead developer, chances are they're going to have meetings with you if they're not already, and hopefully they are having meetings with you. They're talking about really how they can help you guide your career. See what I'm saying? It should be about you and how you want to move. And one of the mainstays that we like to talk about and grow around is how do you find a specialty, right? Having a specialty will give you some of that focus that you might be able to use to keep you from going too crazy and going over too many portions of the industry, trying to learn everything, and then just getting yourself tangled up in a web of learning. You want to be able to implement things and put things to action. And that's difficult when you're trying to learn the dictionary, when you're trying to learn the manual. You want to learn everything at once. It's going to stop you from progressing and lead to procrastination. So having a specialty. For example, one of my specialties is serverless applications and building out enterprise applications using new technology, emerging technology, merging the new, the old with business objectives. Now, when dealing with clients and working with specific types of clients that can leverage emerging technologies, it helps to be able to say, hey, by the way, let's use Elasticsearch, right? 7.5 just came out. There are some features that we could use that are going to be able to leverage your team's ability to use SQL, and we'll be able to get some really great reporting for your sales team, right? Leveraging new technology and keeping my scope really small. Now, when I'm dealing with a client that uses serverless technology, right? Then it could be, all right, you're using serverless technology. That's great. That's awesome. Or if they need to move to serverless technology, I can say, hey, here's some examples of and some case studies of how you can leverage emerging technology. One of them being AWS's new, which is, I don't know how they did it, but this is amazing. They're able to take a SQL engine like MySQL and be able to run it completely serverless. So instead of having a dedicated cluster and worrying about, just database administration, which is difficult. And, when you talk about scaling a database, you have scaling down and going deep, and then scaling wide, and then knowing how much to scale, how much to have in reserves, when you should be scaling, and if you have any downtime, what do you do with that? There's a lot of variables. But being that my specialty is in emerging technology and reaching business objectives, I can say, all right, let's jump into to Aurora and let's use that serverless setup. And then we don't have to worry about when to scale. It will scale automatically. And instead of focusing on orchestration of our database, we can focus more or less on what throughputs we want to make sure we can maintain. So a throughput might be, let's say we reach 25% of our capacity. We can set the capacity to whatever numbers we want, giving it memory and CPU utilization. And we reach 25%, I want you to scale up fast. That way your application will keep growing, right? And so that is a specialty of me being able to just drill down and help them completely build out a serverless application or enterprise app. Now, your specialty could be game development. Unity just released 2019.3, a lot of changes with the dots framework, a new UI system, being able to say, all right, there's all these changes that they just made. I need to focus on something small. So I want to focus on Project Tiny. I love Project Tiny. So Project Tiny is a new introduction that's going to really push the web forward because of how you can use Unity's authoring environment to now build HTML5 based applications or games or interactive experiences, but narrow down that focus. Yes, there were 302 features that were created, but we're going to narrow our focus. One of the things about being able to leverage new technology and keeping yourself from becoming obsolete is also being able to know and find best practices and trends as things are shifting. There are plenty of places, I know I put a lot of Medium articles out. There are a lot of great authors out there, great leaders out there, and thought leaders that, continually put out material that you can learn from, right? You can get the best practices. For example, Vue.js, very, very popular framework. For JavaScript framework, let me add, knowing how to create a component correctly, learning how to use APIs correctly, learning how to unit test. It's important that as you're looking at new technology, you're focusing and you're niching down, that you're finding these avenues where you can also learn some of the best practices. Now, emerging technology, you might be creating those best practices, which can be difficult, because let's keep it real, right? If you're talking about doing VR, for example, the first developers for VR had to know they were going to get motion sickness. And if they didn't, I appreciate you letting us know. Because somebody had to trailblaze that. But it's important that you also learn really good practices, really good techniques, and see if beyond what you're doing, what around you can also help you grow and stay on top of your game. Because becoming obsolete in our industry is just stopping, right? If you stop for just a little bit, I mean, weeks, months, give it a year, man, you're going to be so obsolete. And unfortunately, at least here in America, I am in PA, but originally from New York, but I've always been on the East Coast. But here in America, we have some people from different countries. We, on average, most Americans read one book a year. Just one book a year, which means in terms of growth and prosperity, there's just average. Most people don't invest in themselves. They don't invest in themselves. They don't push themselves beyond, just the day to day. And it could get difficult, especially when you're doing a 9 to 5, where your incentive is just to complete the task and, do what you need to do to get, your business objectives completed. It can be really difficult to say, hey, I'm going to now go out and spend the next 15 minutes, 30 minutes, of my night learning something new. You could be tired from the day, or you could be traveling a lot. And a lot of people travel. You could be traveling an hour and a half driving, 2 hours on a train, and it could be really difficult. Life can get in the way. But having the ability to, push yourself and do those limit breakers, like I said, can really help you achieve your goals of staying relevant and staying in the industry. Now let's check some comments out, see what's going on here. I'm gonna see what we have. Cool. Yeah, this is something that I know, I've gone through so many. It's been 15 years. I can't say how many times I've had to shift and shift, but I love it. I'm so excited about the industry. I'm so excited about, the kind of shifts that we have because, you know, I can stay as a developer and a strategist and still be able to make moves and not worry about having to shift careers. And that's really cool, really fun. Let's get a drink real quick. All right, cool. So something else that I want to really touch on is what does it mean to be a uh, what does it mean to be a self-taught developer? Self-taught developers are oftentimes kind of, it really comes down to perspective. Okay. I get this a lot when I meet people or I'm at an event. You have two conversations, right? The conversation is, hi, my name is, yeah, I'm a self-taught developer. Uh, or the conversation is, yeah, I'm a developer. I went to Yale or Harvard or NYT. You know, it's perspective, the perspective of the individual coming in. How do they perceive themselves? I'll always say this. I tell my kids this, and I tell people that we coach. You have to teach people how to respect you. And the idea of being self-taught sometimes almost feels like because I did a boot camp, or I'm not a real developer. Scratch that. Literally, this whole the last about 25 minutes, I've been saying you have to be able to break limits, learn new things, find ways to niche down. You have to keep learning, growing, and investing in yourself. That's being self-taught. Self-taught developer isn't somebody who picked up a book and said, well, I learned JavaScript today, or I learned web development, I learned security, I'm self-taught, and I'm lesser than. Not at all. Not at all. It's in your own perspective, how you see yourself, because that perspective you have is going to be the perception people are going to have of you. All right. When you hold your head up high and you're like, yeah, I'm a self-taught developer. Uh, we all are. With much love and respect, you have to be self-taught. At some point, colleges, when you think about the whole collegiate system, right? They try to get as many people into the industry and get as much information down packed as possible, right? For the most part, you do have a lot of teachers and a lot of professors, because a lot of people coming out of high school and going right into the industry. Now, I've worked with organizations and helping them staff where I've had a choice having two types of developers, right? One developer, and this is a true story, right? One developer came out of high school and his work was brilliant. His hunger was intense. I was like, man, I love this guy. And another developer who was, somebody who went through college, got a master's, and went through, had about, I think at the time, about 6, 7 years of experience. This other guy had 3 years of experience. Well, looking at them side by side, you'd almost think that the idea would have been go with the guy who had the most experience, right? But no, it was a cultural fit. This guy who, was hungry and was self-taught actually had so much more going for him because he fit the culture for this particular client, right? When you're working with, in this case, I was helping them out with, staffing. How do you find the right cultural fit? Well, this guy who was self-taught, who really was just another one of us, he actually had so much going for him in the sense that he had the drive to learn more. He had the drive to find solutions, because sometimes problem solving, critical thinking, analytical thinking really means getting outside of your box. Going to college opens a door for you. You learn a lot. You learn, the in and outs of computers, you learn the in and outs of security. You learn like just really a vast amount of knowledge. But once you're in, oh, at that point, you got to grow. You got to hit the ground running. And this developer was amazing. And he was a cultural ad, something I push all the time. You can know a lot of information. You can be a techie, but do you fit the culture? And man, did he fit the culture? And so I told him, yeah, y'all gonna need to go with this dude because he's gonna move, he's gonna shake. And that's what they did. They was like, you know what? All right, cool, I got you. And they went with him. He had so much that he did. The amount of work that he did in 3 years for this organization, I was like, what? I knew you had it in you for sure. For sure, I knew you had it in you. And that was a great example of coming out the gate. Whether you're doing some kind of class or you want to do just a boot camp, you still have the same skill sets, you still have the same chance of being in the industry and being a major player. And that's something that being a self-taught developer, we all are self-taught developers. You're going to at some point need to grow. You're going to have to learn something new. Earlier I spoke about Objective C, right? Objective C was really great for the iOS platform, but it was heavy, right? Apple had to make that shift, and they gave us the tools with Swift 3, Swift 2. They started pushing in that direction. Uh, Flash, I mentioned with Flash developers, you had to eventually learn new skills in order to compete in the marketplace. And those new skills ended up being HTML, JavaScript, CSS, and being a developer that could easily shift from one industry to the next industry, or shifting with technology and catching a wave, will keep you from becoming obsolete. So being a self-taught developer is what we all are. It's something that we should strive for on a regular basis. Let's do more than just read that one book a year. Let's break that average and get beyond that. And let's grow together. So I'm gonna take a look at the comments and see if there are any questions anybody wants answered, and take a real quick look at our different platforms. Let's see what we got. Cool. So we have a question on where do you go for resources and how do you learn new information? Well, learning to learn is a deep topic, and it's something that I mentioned earlier. You have to be able to focus and try to give yourself some leeway and go outside of your comfort zone and outside of your technology stack or outside of your industry, so you can learn some information that could potentially have a huge impact on your industry. I mentioned AI and machine learning and AWS. And as far as where to learn, there are many places that you can learn information from. There are great resources. Some of those resources, including Medium, blog articles. There are a lot of thought leaders depending on where you are in your industry. There are thought leaders in just about every industry. I like to focus on performance, unit testing, enterprise application, as well as self-development, coaching, and investing in yourself. I've worked with a lot of companies and training both junior developers, senior developers, and leadership on how to really work together and build a better culture. So, there are places out there. There are a lot of people who specialize in different types of areas. So really, you want to go out and kind of search a little bit, start from articles, videos, and go from there. If you're looking for something specific, definitely drop a line in any of our areas, specifically on our LinkedIn group. If you drop a comment in the group or on Facebook, whichever group you're a part of, we'll get those resources together for you and point you in the right direction. If there's any other questions, and once again, feel free to to hop in and drop any line that you want to hear from us. All right, cool. Thank you again. I'm so glad you were able to join our January 29th meeting. This session has been amazing. I hope you've learned a lot. If you have any questions, This video will be posted online in the group, so you'll have a chance to rewatch the video and slow it down and take notes. And if you have questions, then you definitely put them out to the group, because there are so many other people who go through the same situations that you're going through and may have the same questions. And so we'll all be able to learn and grow from each other. So definitely post comments, and I will most definitely be in the group after this call. So if there are any questions after this session, be sure to jump on there. And developers leading in tech, we're going to have more of these sessions. You can expect every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time that there will be more sessions for us to go through. And so I've got some more questions coming through. There will be sessions, and beyond myself, Cade will also be jumping in. Cade is a strategist at DigiSpire Group. She's absolutely amazing and will help you understand how upper management thinks. I mean, gold mines, understanding the strategy behind how they think will help you get, ahead so much further, because then it's kind of a key and roadmap. What more do you want? It's literally, like in Zelda, when you get that little map on the, on the top left, you're like, man, where did I go to? Oh, the map is filled. I was already in this dungeon. I was already on this floor, or the key is here. Well, Kate is gonna give you that. That's what she does for us, and she's gonna do the same thing for you when she jumps in the group. So if you have any questions, especially strategy, especially how management thinks, and and upper management, as well as business strategy and objectives, she's going to be the one to really give you the most value. So check out for her in the group. Just drop a comment. She'll definitely reply. And once again, thank you all for watching the video. And I can't wait to see you guys in the group. I'm really excited for our next training session. If you do have any ideas, please drop a comment and let us know, what do you want to learn next? The group is all about building, and we want your feedback. So once again, it's Edithson Abelard. Thank you so much. And we'll see you in the group. Developers Leading in Tech. I'm out.